Welcome back to another Game Time Discussions. I'm Emery Cuzzy. I'm sitting here with Dustin Zimmerman, and we're going to be going over the college football first round. And I will say, and we're also going to go ahead and look forward, of course, to the second round of playoffs where we actually don't have home games, which is, I think, going to make it a little bit more interesting for
I'm
sure.
excited.
Because, yeah. But talking about this first round, I have a whole thing, but I did want to see, did you have anything that really stood out to you? I know that I actually asked Cam to send me something if in light of this to see if he
Right.
had anything that really stood out to him that he thought was important, and I'll pull that up. But did you have anything that stood out to you?
Two things actually. One, SMU's lack of adjustments. They had Preston Stone, who's essentially on the team solely in case Jennings is having a bad game, and they just let Jennings keep throwing it to the wrong team. So I was pretty surprised at that point.
Okay.
I mean, when you're in the play, it's one thing to go, "Hey, we're not giving up on you, but we need to make some changes." But when you're in the playoff at that point, it's the last game of the year, you got to go for it, make a change, do something. So I was surprised at that.
He already had committed to Northwestern, so was he allowed to play in the game? He was on the sideline, I know.
From
but...
what I read, if he's on the sideline, he's eligible.
Okay. Yeah, okay, sounds good. I just wanted to make sure
No.
because it's a really weird landscape right now with transfers and things because
Yeah.
I've seen multiple players play that are transferring out. And
Yeah.
it's one thing if they're graduate students, like they're
Sure.
transferring to become a graduate student
Right.
and that's why they have to leave.
That's their only option.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's different when you're Cameron Veltkamp from Western Kentucky. He's a sophomore. He's already going to be transferring out.
Right.
But he started the game, played the whole game for Western Kentucky.
That one was weird to me.
I don't I don't know. I coached a little bit. I've seen how old school coaches act. I've
Yeah.
seen how new school coaches act. And neither of them are okay with how this, I think, should go down. I think
Right.
both of them are sitting guys that are like on their way out.
Yeah.
So I'm actually definitely on that side of it. Like I do not think that as a coach, I don't think you should play the players that are not bought in my
Right.
personal opinion.
I mean, my opinion on it, and we talked about it off
Right.
off camera a little bit, but now that we're kind of bringing it up again, obviously I've never coached aside from my various amount of hours on CFP 25 or CFP 25 and every iteration before that.
Yes.
But like my thing is, once you get to that point, you got like a sophomore, for instance. This isn't a guy who you recruited and built up for 4 years, and you're like, hey, you got to go. I get it. You got a better opportunity, even maybe it's not a grad transfer, but hey, you get to play your last year at your dad's alma mater or whatever. I get it. Go enjoy. I'll let you get one more run, and then next year we'll start fresh with our freshmen. But like a situation like that where they're just a sophomore and you've got some freshmen or whatever coming in or who's been sitting behind him.
Yeah.
At this point, plan for next year. Get the guy some reps, especially in a moment where it doesn't really matter. There's no pressure on this.
Western Kentucky might not be the best example just for the fact that both of their number 1 and number 2 quarterbacks left because TJ Finley also was there. He transferred out for the 5th time. He's going somewhere new.
TJ Finley been around more than the $1 bill.
Yeah, but I just mean in normal situations, if there's a starter that is like, hey, I'm leaving, I already have an NIL deal somewhere else because that's also what's happening. The landscape of college football right now, and I'm a big believer in this, is terrible.
Yeah.
And it needs to be fixed because every single year we're going to have 15 new starters on every team in the SEC.
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to keep up. Me and you are not going to be able to keep up. First off, we're going to have to see week 1 before we know what the hell is going on.
I'm sure you'll keep up with Florida State. I'll know A&M's starting line, and then from there we'll be figuring out. Wait,
we're going to be piecing them because if you have, like, I believe Colorado was number 1 for the most transfers brought in last year.
Was it them? I couldn't remember if it was them or Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss had the higher rating, but
Colorado had the most. I think they had like almost 50.
It was an insane amount.
50 something.
Yeah.
That is impossible for us to keep up with, of course. Yeah. But on top of that, how do you have any like cohesion? Like, how does everybody work together, play together? Like, I know at this point in the year, it's 13 games later, but like at the beginning of the year, you should be picking against teams that have huge turnover every year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why Colorado had such a slow start.
Yeah, they lost to Nebraska.
Throttled by them.
Yeah.
And then towards the end of the year, they looked a lot better. But yeah, no. I mean, yeah, with Western Kentucky to put a stamp on that one's a hard one. But even still, especially if it's your top 2, in my opinion, I would have gone with the the guy who's been sitting third and probably going to be my QB1 next year, unless, and of course, the part that no one talks about is what's going on behind the scenes and how a guy will enter the transfer portal and then 12 hours later commit to a new school. Yeah, there was no tampering there.
Well, yeah, they know where they're going before they get in there. And actually, we have a friend of the show, and his wife is a coach that coaches track at Texas State. She and me have talked about the transfer portal and things like that, and how crazy it is becoming. But one thing that we actually said, and I sent Cam actually sent something in the chat the other day between me, you, and him about how Diego Pavia is he was ruled to be able to get another year.
I love Diego Pavia.
It doesn't make any sense though. His ruling should have never happened.
Oh, for sure.
It is allowing him to have 2 JUCO years and get 4 full years of college football at the D1 level.
Yeah.
That only hurts high schoolers.
Yeah.
It only hurts high schoolers because why would you go to college? Why would you go to D1 school at 18 years old if you're competing with transfers directly from a JUCO that are going to go in 2 years older than you, way more mature, way more ready to play, and then you're already behind. You're a draft prospect at 21. They're a draft prospect at 21 also, but I believe you have to play at least to your junior year. Yeah. So truly, they're just so much farther ahead developmentally, mentally, physically, everything. Yeah. So I really dislike that. They also probably don't have as much workload. Like if you just talk about classes, why would they? They took all their undergrad classes as they were in JUCO. So now they have like 12 hours, 9 hours every semester, whatever
and generally in one subject. And,
exactly.
More focused instead of taking their poli-sci followed by theater.
And exactly. So it's like, why we're just really writing a really bad precedent right now. Yeah. Everything has to be fixed, in my personal opinion.
Well, so what's interesting is in baseball, they recently cut down college baseball. They cut down the roster size too.
Yes.
And so, but because of that, it means, so similar to your point, do I take the guy who was a 2-year starter at a JUCO to bring in as my new first baseman, or do I get the 17-year-old who's really good, but also 30 pounds lighter and has never faced college pitching? Mm-hmm. I'm going to take the JUCO guy every day. And so a bunch of the high school guys, they're either losing scholarships now, which happened a little bit since this was the first year it's implemented, or they're having to go to JUCO instead because they just can't compete, which will also be interesting because they can actually go straight to the MLB. Yeah. But there's a lot who shouldn't.
They're just not physically ready.
It's okay.
Mentally
we're not all
ready.
Prodigies, so
exactly.
Do not feel bad.
There's only so many people that can get picked in the first round.
Exactly.
But the other thing too, football has just now added scholarships. So you can have so many players on the roster or whatever, but they went from 85 scholarships, and I believe they're going to 105 scholarships now, which is a huge jump.
Yes, but the roster size got cut because now there's no more walk-ons.
Yes, you're cutting all walk-ons. Walk-ons are what? Why are we doing that? Yeah, like we love walk-ons. Like
R.I.P. A&M's kickoff team that went viral in the 80s, 90s, and recently.
Walk-ons, there are so many good walk-ons stories and people that have come from that, and it really makes it makes me sad to see like these guys not getting the opportunities. So instead they're going to go to a JUCO, play there, and then hopefully get that opportunity later. But it's just, I don't know. Yeah. A lot of stuff to talk about, unfold, but let's get into actually the college football playoff. We have some other things to talk about. I will start with one of the things, and I'll pull it up, talking about this first game. Happened on, I believe, Friday night.
This is Friday night, yeah.
Yeah. So Notre Dame, this is not indicative of the score at all.
No, this is one of those things. This wasn't a 10-point game.
No. Notre Dame basically 27-3 Indiana until, and I had to write it down because I wanted to remember the exact time. It was 4 minutes and 50 seconds left in the game is when they scored their touchdown. And then Indiana scored 2 late touchdowns. I also wrote down only 152 yards of offense for Indiana up to that point. 55 minutes, they had 152 yards of offense. Yeah. They and we're going to make this case because everybody's going to talk about it. And I also this is why we're going to bring this up now. Both SMU and Indiana deserve to be in the playoffs.
100%.
We should not say Alabama should be above them. First off, Alabama shouldn't even be the next team. It should be South Carolina. Not the point. We'll talk. That's another talk. But at the same time, yes, Indiana got beat at home at Notre Dame's home
Right.
In these big, home games, these teams that are home teams, they're also ranked in the top, 8. They're supposed to be there.
Right.
They're not going to lose at home.
There's a reason they were hosting.
Home very often, right? So I think it's a big thing. But one thing Cam did send me, because I did ask him that stuff, in the just referencing some of the college football playoffs in the past. 11 out of the 12 playoff games before that all were double-digit results with an average margin of 20.75. So the only time that we had close games normally was 2023 and 2024.
Yep.
Before that, 11 out of 12 were 20.75 margins.
Yep.
And then I actually wrote some of these margins down. Last year, Michigan 34-13 against Washington.
Yep.
In the national championship.
Yep. Yep.
Georgia 65-7 against TCU. That is everybody's favorite stat.
I was going to bring that one up.
TCU never should have been there.
No.
Well, guess what? They won the semifinal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Georgia in Michigan in 2022 was 34-11. Same year, Alabama beat Cincinnati 27-6.
Yep.
And then the year before that, Alabama beat Notre Dame 31-14. Ohio State beat Clemson 49-28, and Alabama won the national championship 52-24.
Yep.
So we've seen blowouts. We see them every year. It's not new. So stop acting like these teams didn't deserve to be there.
Right.
Maybe a little bit more preparation and coaching. Fine.
Sure.
But Indiana is an 11-win team.
Yeah.
One loss before this game.
Right.
They absolutely deserve to be
Ohio
here.
State too. It's not like they lost to Northern Illinois or something.
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of want to write away that whole precedent of these losses show that these teams didn't deserve to be there. Right. No, they just happen to play really good teams.
Yeah.
Notre Dame is one of those teams. So, but yeah, let's get into talking about this game. I don't want to hear your take on it, honestly.
I mean, honestly, it went pretty much how I expected. I expected Notre Dame to just dominate both sides of the ball, and they did. I told you I took Jeremiah Love's prize picks for rush attempts, and then he breaks off a 98-yarder, and then they just don't run him the rest of the game. Yeah. I think he finished with, what, 8
rushing attempts. Yeah.
I was like, dang it, the one time I actually play prize picks and take a Jeremiah Love line, who I like. He was rumored to go to A&M 2 years ago. So a lot of people after the game, Aggie community was like, good job, Jimbo. Way to miss on that one. Yeah, I mean, Notre Dame looked solid. They actually impressed me, I will say. I expected them to win both sides of the ball. I did not expect them to do it to where I, like, halfway through the second quarter was like, wow, this game's over.
Yeah.
There's no chance of a comeback. This one's done.
I felt that same way in a couple of other games that, this game is over.
Yeah.
It never really felt like we'll talk about those games in a minute.
Right.
But with this Notre Dame team, they controlled the line of scrimmage on both offense and defense. Offensive player of the game was Jeremiah Love.
Right.
Because he did create that momentum with that 98-yard run.
Oh, yeah.
And
absolutely.
he also, he's a good pass catcher.
Yeah.
He's, honestly, Dustin, he might be a guy next year that we're talking about as a prospect is the number one running back in the class, because he is just really good balance, speed, both pass catching, running, all the things. So he's a really good player. Another guy we'd talk about, defensive player of the game, Xavier Watts had that pick, which was it went through the hands of a Indiana player, I believe, on the 10-yard line, and then he caught it on the goal line. He also had the most tackles on the game. He's just an absolute stud.
Nothing surprising, honestly.
Absolute stud.
There's a reason he won one of the big awards last year. I always forget every time we talk about
Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I think he won the big one.
I believe so, yes. So, yeah, they just looked really good. And Indiana, like I said, only had 152 yards of offense until the last two drives, which were in the last 5 minutes of the game. So, of course, their numbers looked a little beefed. Curtis Rourke had a really hard game, and it had a lot to do with the fact that he was constantly pressured. There was only a couple sacks in the game. I think they had 3 total sacks, but constant pressure by this front. I do believe, though, the biggest thing that came out of this for Notre Dame on injury-wise, Riley Mills is going to be out for the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm.
He is the graduate transfer that had all the push up front. He'll be out for the rest of the season. So that one hurt. That's going to hurt them a little bit, but definitely a one-sided dominant game.
Yep.
And then Saturday at 11 o'clock, this happened. This game was, as you said earlier, they started off 2 pick sixes for Penn State. And Dominic DeLuca was the first one. He's the defensive player of the game. He's down there because of the momentum that he created from that. So that's pretty big. He also had half a sack and half a tackle for loss. So
I think if SMU gets that early 4th down conversion, which should have been a touchdown, the tight end just dropped the ball. Wasn't the best throw by any means, but it also hit both of his hands before he
reasonable.
got hit. Then while juggling it is when he actually got hit. So I think it would have been a really fun game had they not lost all momentum that early in it. And then, of course, like I said, in a playoff, go with Preston Stone. See if he can get it done. I know he's leaving, but you're the coach, and you're trying to get the other 80 whatever members on the team to the next round. You got to swallow your pride and make a change there.
Yeah, it's fair.
No, I don't know if it was a prideful decision on why, or he just went, hey, I think Jennings really is our guy, even though he was not, obviously. Kind of hard to tell. Penn State looked good, but I think SMU made them look a lot better than they probably were going to be that game. Again, with 2 pick sixes.
I just think Penn State's dominant in this game.
Yeah.
And they're just the better team. And they were up 28-0 at half. Penn State is actually the team that I have going to the semifinal because they do have so much talent on their team.
Yeah, that's fair.
Drew didn't even have to play. He just had to hand the ball off because if you look at the offense player of the game, Nick Singleton and Katron Allen.
Yeah, give it to both of them.
Yeah,
sure.
Averaging 6.4 yards per rush. Between the 2 interceptions, they also had the other 3 touchdowns. I apologize.
Right.
So, yeah, those guys are pretty good. And the only time that SMU actually scored a touchdown was when the backups were in. Yeah. The backup quarterback is the one that threw the 1 turnover for Penn State. So they were pretty dominant. It didn't really look like they had any worries. And I just think just SMU didn't come in ready to go. And the biggest thing I want to point out, too, and we just talked about Indiana, no run game. None. SMU, no run game. Back-to-back games where you're dominated by the defensive line.
Yep.
Can't get the ball going. 1.6 yards per rush.
Yeah.
That'll really hurt you, especially when you're trying to win big games in Penn State in a whiteout game.
Yeah.
I don't think you can do it without, having some sort of run game.
Absolutely.
So this one was actually a pretty easy game to break down. It was really one-sided.
Yeah. And there's not a whole lot you don't need a whole lot of analysis to figure this one out.
It was a tough game. And then this was actually a game. This one
was fun.
This was actually a game, which was good to see. I put offensive, defensive players of the game. We're going to give some love to the big boys.
Absolutely.
The offensive line with all the injuries and all the things that have happened during the game, they just keep rolling.
Yep.
They don't care. And we've talked about Texas a lot. And the reason I believe in Texas in any way, is the trenches.
Yeah.
Their offensive and defensive lines are 2 of the best in the nation. They are the number 1 defensive unit in the nation. And not necessarily just all defense. Yeah. Defensive line wise, it's South Carolina. Not the point. Separate. Fair. But Texas looked really good.
Yeah.
They rushed the ball for 292 yards. And that's really what was the doing in for Clemson because they couldn't run the ball.
Nope.
And then they couldn't stop the run because of how dominant the offensive line was. So, Texas kind of handles business, but there were some times in this game that were really close. So.
Yeah. I mean, towards the end, I think it was in the 4th quarter, Clemson made it a 1-score game, and then Texas broke off a 77 yard.
Yeah, Jaden Blue, 77 yard.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was 70 whatever, but it was a fun one though. I mean, definitely our best of the quarterfinal.
Oh yeah.
So
some spotlight guys though, Jaden Blue and
first round. Sorry.
Yeah, first round. Jaden Blue, Wisner, 29 total rushes, 256 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Then Gunnar Helm, guys. And I am such a Gunnar Helm believer. I'm so excited about this guy.
I mean, you kind of have to be at this point. This whole year the consistency was awesome.
Yeah, so my wife's family, all Texas fans, so her brother played football in college, so we talk sometimes, and Gunnar Helm is always a topic when it comes to Texas football because he is a good blocker inline blocker, and he also obviously catches the ball. He had 6 for 77 and a touchdown. But hey, you got to give Cade Klubnik a ton of credit for what he was able to do on the other side also.
Oh, absolutely.
He had 336 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception.
Right.
Fireworks in the first quarter.
Yeah.
4 touchdowns on basically 6 drives.
Yeah.
Fireworks. So, great game. Clemson did go down by 21. It would have been the largest comeback if they were able to come back in college football playoff history, which would have been pretty cool. 18 was the recent, I believe. 18. I think it was Georgia. And then when it got to 31-24, Jaden Blue breaks it off. And the defense, we forgot. Best plays of the game was the goal line stop in the fourth quarter by the defense for Texas.
Absolutely.
So that really put it ahead, and that's why Texas was able to do it, because they could run the ball, and Clemson couldn't.
Yep.
So got to be able to run the ball away.
Their run offense has been insane throughout the second half of the year, especially with the injuries they've had to their running backs.
Mm-hmm. And then going over to the last game, another beatdown. The problem is, guys, when you have no Dylan Sampson after the first quarter, basically, and Nico is your quarterback, you are incapable of playing with this Ohio State team.
Yep.
There is just too much talent on the Ohio State side of the ball. They're in the shoe. You know, it's just, there's no way Ohio State was giving this game up. And I know you picked them, but I know you picked Tennessee to win this game, but they had nothing. They had nothing to offer.
This was easily my biggest disappointment of the first round. As much as I wanted SMU to win, and I mean, theirs was bad, but this is the one where I was like, I think Tennessee could win, yeah. And then they go down 21-0 in the first quarter. And I was watching that, and I was like, okay, well,
before
good job, Nico.
Before 9 minutes was up in the first quarter. They did though come back. You want to hear some really fun stats? Actually, I did some research on this, but first 3 possessions. 3 touchdowns.
Yep.
Second half starts. First 3 possessions for Ohio State, 3 touchdowns.
Yep.
There's only 6 touchdowns in the game. They gave up all of their touchdowns within basically the first 12 minutes of each half.
Yeah.
And couldn't keep up. Too much firepower for Ohio State. Everybody basically played well. Travion Henderson had 10 rushes for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jeremiah Smith was our offensive player of the game. He deserved it. 6 receptions, 103 for 2 touchdowns. I mean, he is an absolute stud.
And a freshman.
And yes, and a freshman. He would be, and I think that this is kind of like becoming a natural thing, but Jeremiah Smith is the number 1 wide receiver in the 2025 draft class.
Yeah.
But he's not able to get drafted in it. Like,
he would be, though.
Yeah, he would be. He's better than everybody in this class.
Well, I remember seeing like week 4 or something that Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams would be wide receiver 1 and 2 in this class at the time.
Yeah.
If they were old enough.
If they could come out, yeah. They're both solid players, and they just did some great things. And then after all that, there was nothing for Tennessee. They had no offense. 104 yards for freaking Nico. Like, I don't know how to feel about Nico going into next year. This year I was like, oh great, he's developing now. He's become the freak athlete everyone expected him to. Yeah.
And then all year it was I was at that moment of, all right, this is the game he's going to get it going. This is the one he's going to get it going. Okay, he finally got it going this game, and then next game. All right, he's maybe going to keep it going.
Yeah. Dylan Sampson is the biggest thing that happened for Tennessee.
Yeah.
And he's gone. So now what do you do? Basically is the question when you're in the – and I mean, for the coaches, how do you adjust? Because truly they had nothing. They brought their backup running back in, and he couldn't get going at all. And so they're also playing against Ohio State, who has athletes and studs everywhere.
Yeah.
A couple guys we're to talk about, JT Tuamaloa and Jack Sawyer, combined for 13 tackles, 3.5 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, and 3 pass deflections. So basically doing everything.
Yep.
And they were on the field for a lot less plays than you might think. So I do think they came out obviously at the end of the game first off, and then on top of that, constantly just 3 and outs. Yeah. Efficiency 6 for 16 on third down. Pretty solid outing for Ohio State. This is the best team in the nation.
Yeah.
And I
can't argue that.
And that's why I have them winning in my bracket. I had them winning the Natty. because
that's why mine's changed.
fair, absolutely fair. But Penn State also looked like the best Penn State team we've had all year. Tell me they didn't. They look like the best Penn State team we've had all year.
I'm not denying that at all.
Well,
I still don't trust Big Game James.
But... Oh, fair. We'll talk about that in a second because we're going to get to the
Let
the
me
actual
get
games.
to my predictions and then I'll drop the bombs on you.
Okay, let's get to it then. I know that I'm not changing my predictions at all. So I'm staying the exact same how I looked at it prior. Going into this game, Ohio State was my team. Then they did what they did Saturday. And I'm like, yep, they're the team. They're the team to beat, in my personal opinion. They just happen to have the hardest road. They had to play Tennessee. Well, Tennessee rolled over and died.
Yeah.
Oregon, they got to play. Then they most likely have to play Texas. And then they get to play whoever comes out of the other side in the finals.
Right.
So it's a really hard, tough road. But they are the best team to me. So I'm going to stick behind them. Power ranking shows them as second. They are going up against one of the best offenses in football. And Oregon is no slouch. Don't get me wrong. It's not that. But Dan Lanning did kind of get screwed in his road just because he has to play Ohio State, UT, and then most likely Georgia, Penn State, or Notre Dame. So
Dan Lanning will be fine. Ohio State, I would take them in this game.
You're picking them also?
Absolutely.
I think that the spread is going to be, well, at -2.5, you have to kind of take the Ohio State side if you're picking them.
Yeah.
Because you just don't get games of two basically very often.
You do realize this game ended in a 1-point game.
I know what happened last time. I actually have that pulled up. I was going to talk about it. And that game was absolutely insane. It should have been a 2-point game if it makes you feel better. Because
should have been a lot of things. You mean Ohio State winning?
Ohio State should have won.
They should have
by
the
2.
Goal
Bad clock management. Everybody wants to fire Ryan Day. Ryan Day will most likely be back. I have another friend that is from Ohio, and we were talking about it, and he was like, well, if Ohio State wins the Natty, they won't fire Ryan Day, so I don't want them to win the Natty. And I'm like, well, I actually think that Michigan beating you 4 times in a row is more important than winning the national championship.
I was about to say, from everything I've seen from Ohio State fans, is they could not care less about a natty if it means, hey, we at least beat Michigan.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
Michigan is their championship. They do not care about anything else.
Insanely rent-free, but...
I love it. I absolutely love it.
I mean, there's a degree here where it's like, guys, please think about what you just said. Now I get it, though, with the rivalry, though, because, like, say Ohio State does win this year, all of their friends or coworkers or whatever that are Michigan fans go, I mean, we beat y'all.
Y'all still suck.
Yeah, I don't care that you won. We're better than you. Yeah. We planted our flag.
Yeah, literally. So I saw a guy wearing a Michigan hat the other day, and I was like, "Oh, you're so proud!" Like all I could think. Oh yeah, all I could think.
That guy could not care less about the bowl game. He is living.
It's like we already won. I mean, what? Who's Alabama?
For them, this really was their national championship. For Michigan, for Ohio State, it was not. They're going to play for one more than maybe. They're trying to get to one.
Yes.
We both think they will go to the next round. As opposed to my former pick, because I had Oregon winning it all. And now Ohio State has thrown a wrench in that because of how dominant they looked.
Actually, I do believe we asked you during the stream for our bowl picks, if Ohio State won, you would pick Ohio State to beat Oregon. So that actually folloes based on what you had said during the stream itself.
I thought Tennessee would win.
Yeah, so right. During the stream itself, you actually did say that. So I mean, hey, that's why we have the stream, right? So we can go back.
Definitely predicted it.
Ooh. Yeah, going to the next game. Georgia, Notre Dame. Where is this game? Now that I think about it.
I will get that pulled up. It's the Sugar Bowl, which is not clicking for some reason. New Orleans, that's right.
New Orleans, okay,
Superdome.
So for that game, I mean, that's obviously closer for Georgia than Notre Dame. Notre Dame having to come down from Indiana. Yeah, so that kind of obviously bodes well in their favor, but at the same time, and let me grab this. Grab this. At the same time, though, it does mean that Notre Dame is good. Like, that was like what I was trying to get at. Hold on. I'm trying to fix something. I apologize. What in the world just happened?
While you're doing that,
Yeah.
Northern Illinois just won their game in
Did
double
they?
overtime against Fresno State. Fresno State missed 3 field goals, one of which being a 35-yarder in the middle of the field at the end of regulation.
Yep, that'll do it. That's how you. I mean, we were watching that a little bit before we came up to do this because of the fact that it was on, and that game was kind of going and going and going because of the overtime. It was a double overtime game. I'm not even on the right thing. So that was pretty cool. But to see a team miss 3 field goals, you got to fire that guy. He's not coming back next year. I'm sorry. I think his last name was Lynch. I'm sorry, bud. You're gone forever. So, but yeah, getting on to the Sugar Bowl. I want to hear your take on this game and where you're at and who you think's going to win.
Notre Dame opened as a 1.5-point favorite. It quickly swung 3 points to Georgia being 1.5-point favorites. I am not comfortable at all making a prediction because I have no idea what Georgia is going to do with the quarterback situation. I mean, I know who they're starting, obviously.
Right.
Gunnar Stockton. But I know very little about him aside from 1-2 possessions against Texas, and in one of those he got his head taken off. So
yeah, so I think Gunnar Stockton was a 5-star coming in.
Yeah.
He's a young guy, so
right.
He's a good player. I think that I'm actually less worried about him, but it does give me a reason to also want to continue with my pick of Notre Dame.
Yeah,
especially because with Notre Dame, they are really good at controlling the time of possession. They don't really turn the ball over, and their defense is so good that they make so many issues in that way.
Yeah,
I think the defense being as good as they are and how bad this Georgia offense has been, well, it kind of reminds me of how the first half of Texas looked against Georgia. That's what I expect to happen here.
Yeah.
So I'd expect Notre Dame to win this game. I think obviously -1.5. I'm going to be on the other side, but I'm going to roll with my guys. Cam is also going to be picking Notre Dame to win and following his trend that he picked. So me and Cam picked the same picks. So everything I say doesn't necessarily quote and go to him, but like everything that I say, he will be picking the same teams and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that Notre Dame is the better team. And defensive efficiency wise, you look at second. Offensive efficiency, sure. They looked really good this last week, of course. But Georgia's a different beast, so we'll see how that kind of goes.
Yeah, I would switch my pick to Notre Dame based on how much they controlled, not necessarily their offense against Indiana, but their defense.
Right.
That's what impressed me the most in that game. And I would also take, like I said, Notre Dame over a Carson Beckless Georgia. Just because you bring in the young guy and he's going to play a top defense in Notre Dame.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. I completely get it.
I don't know. I think he could impress, though, quite a bit. I think he could go crazy and have a great game, and they'd be fine. And Georgia's defense steps up and plays how they normally do, and their offense stops dropping the ball so much. Literally, they have a lot of drops. I don't know why. But, yeah, I mean, all that being said, I would take Notre Dame right now.
Yes, completely agree. And they are higher power ranked, which I think is interesting how the power rankings work out. But they're third versus fifth. Strength of schedule wise, though, Notre Dame didn't play anybody, and Indiana was their biggest game of the year.
Yeah.
Sorry, A&M. But Indiana was the hardest team they've played.
Just how we ended the year. It's not us.
They blew them out. So kind of how I expect this game. Well, I don't expect a blowout, but I expect a close game where Notre Dame finds a way to win the game.
Yeah.
And then going on to the next one. This game is -10.5 Penn State side. I will be picking Penn State to win, but I am nervous about that 10.5. I'm going to be taking Penn State to cover in this game in the Fiesta Bowl, which is in Arizona. But I'm not confident by any means.
You shouldn't be.
But I think Penn State, just based on watching them this last week, this is the best Penn State team we've seen. They are rolling right now.
Oh, yeah.
And defensively, they're really good. A couple of good edge rushers, solid secondary. I think that they have the better team, and I'm going to just think that they can find a way to get some extra points here and there and push it through. Their O-line's been really good, though. Their play calling has actually been good,
yeah,
which is something that we have problems with most of the time when it comes to Penn State and James Franklin. But hey, Boise State, man, can't count them out. Ashton Jeanty is the in this room. We both picked him to win the Heisman, I believe. I think we would have both thought he had the better year overall, but that doesn't matter. He was second in the Heisman voting, did win the Maxwell Award, was the Doak Walker Award winner, and he is the best running back in football.
Yeah.
And he's a guy that does not matter who they're playing against. He can go for 200 yards. He had 200 all-purpose yards against Oregon in their one loss on the year. So I would not count them out. They also have one of the top 5 pass rushes overall. They do have a top 5 sack total. So good team. It's not that. It's just I just think Penn State is playing too good right now, and 10.5 might be big, but at the same time, I think they're 2 touchdowns better than Boise State at the end of the day. And I think if they want to get over the hump when they have to play either Notre Dame or Georgia in the next round, they need to put up 14 plus points on Boise State.
I see this game being very similar to when Oregon played Boise State, where I don't think it'll necessarily be the shootout that one was.
Right.
Kickoff return touchdowns, because that's just not how Penn State plays.
Yeah.
They're very grit and grind. They run the ball down your throat.
Good football.
They find a way to win games, and they control the ball.
Yeah.
You're not going to get the big flashy plays. Tyler Warren isn't going to go outrun a bunch of guys, but he will bowl right through 2 or 3 of them. So, I mean, I think Penn State wins. I think Boise State covers. I think it will be closer than that. That being said, the problem with a game like this and the spread on it is you've got guys who, if Boise State's down 7 and there's 50 seconds left, they're not worried about throwing a pick. They're like, we got to win. I don't care if we lose by 21 at the end of this. So they're going to make risky plays. And then you get things like the pick 6 on fluky plays because they're just going all out at that point of, if I throw a pick, what's it matter? The season's over regardless.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that my biggest thing that like kind of sets this game apart is that Penn State, and I don't mean this in a bad way about Boise State, because Boise State is and so the Mountain West and the Big 12 are about the same, like, strength of schedule wise. So, but the Big 10 and the Mountain West are a very big difference when it comes to strength of schedule and how good the teams are. So that's my thing too, is like Penn State's kind of, gone throughout the year, only losing to teams that, Ohio States of the world, and more deserving, Oregon of the world, of course, and then more deserving of this situation where they are going to be more ready, I think.
Yeah.
The only problem is, I mean, shoot, I guess it's a trek because they're playing in Arizona while Boise State's actually both are far. Yeah, both are far.
You know your geography?
Yeah, both are far. I was trying to make that case. There's no case there.
No, I mean, one's farther, but it's not like either is a trip down the road by any means.
So this game is I'm on the Penn State side, and I think that they win by 2 touchdowns.
Like I said, I think it'll be closer to a 7-point game, but I also think Penn State wins still.
Switching all our get picks. All right, let's see it. Now,
I had Penn State on my original one.
Oh, okay.
That's what I have pulled up at least.
This game, though, is a 14-point game. Texas is very favored. They're playing at the Peach Bowl. That is going to be at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yep.
And
Texas
Bevo
recently.
Yes, Bevo is not allowed to go to the game, so that's fun. I know that's pissing off some Texas fans, but whatever. There's not enough room. It is what it is. Like I mean, I wish Bevo could be there because I think that that's cool for the sport, but whatever. But just kind of talking about it, the only thing that I think Arizona State's got going for them is Cam Skattebo.
It's Cam Skattebo and vibes. That's how they survived off the year.
Yeah, but Cam Skattebo and vibes is not enough to beat a defensive line that Texas has right now.
It's not. Yeah.
And
this is one where I think I will actually take the big spread.
Yeah.
I think Texas covers it.
I agree. I'm with you. It might tie. I mean, they might win by 14. Fine, whatever. But I think that
purely off vibes then.
Right. No, I'm all about Texas in this game. I mean, offensive line, defensive line. Arizona State, you just look at them. They don't have their best receiver, who had 1,000 yards this year, Jordan Tyson. He had 1,100 yards, actually, and 10 touchdowns. He's their best player, and he basically took on 40% of their receiving work.
Yep.
Now, Cam Skattebo is a top 5 running back in the nation just this year in general.
According to him, he's the best.
Well, athleticism differences between him and a guy like
I'm just saying what he said.
But that's not even the point. Like, I'm just saying, like, he is now going up against the hardest test in his this year by far.
In his career.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The defensive line for Texas is built different.
Yeah.
And they're going to show him that. So I just think this game is a little bit too far apart for ability. We did say that the Big 12 is not good.
Right.
Well, the ACC wasn't good either. I'm not going to say that they were good, but Clemson at least has the talent offensively to test Texas in multiple ways.
Yeah.
And they have a quarterback, and I don't understand Sam Levitt's bad, but he's not Cade Klubnik.
Well, I was also going to bring up, he is still a freshman.
Redshirt freshman.
Well,
yeah.
Either way.
Yeah.
He's not, again, Cade
19
Klubnik.
years old, 20 years old. Yeah.
He's also not played in a game nearly this big.
Right.
Ever. So,
no, fair. But I just don't think it matters. Because
that's what I'm saying. Texas is going to win.
Yeah, they're probably gonna blow them out, and if they don't, I actually think it's not gonna look good because you look at the Clemson win, they let it get close. You look at the Georgia loss, they should have been up by 21 points in the first half. You look at the Texas A&M win, only by 10. They beat the brakes off of A&M, and I know you know that. I know you watched crying
I know
with your
didn't cry at all.
lots of whiskey. And, no, I'm just kidding.
No,
I'm just kidding.
Actually, zero.
I'm just kidding.
That would be I knew.
You knew better.
That game, it wasn't going to be worth it.
Right.
So we just stayed on the water all night.
Not a baby. But no, 10 points to A&M. Like they just left points on the board to end the year.
100%. Yeah.
And I hate Sark's play calling.
Yeah.
And Quinn is
you don't like 3 greens every possession.
No. Or how about in overtime throwing it to the end zone on first down every time?
Sounds fun.
Whatever. Run the ball. Run the damn ball because that's what's going to work for Texas and stop the run.
Well,
and
it seems
they're
like
going to win the game.
That out. I don't think this will be close.
It's a perfect matchup for Texas.
Absolutely.
It's perfect.
I mean, but to be fair, Arizona State would probably be my 12th team of the playoff teams. If it was no conference championships, buys, blah, blah, blah.
Completely
it was purely off overall rating, I'd put them at 12.
Well, power ranked 22nd.
Yeah, the SP Plus also, which is predictive, has them at 29th, I think.
Okay.
Overall.
I think, and I can go back to just check because Boise State was 25th. So basically 11 and 12 who you have basically at the end of it. But,
right.
I'm on the Texas side. They have the perfect matchup here, and then they get to go play the winner of Oregon, Ohio State, and that game is going to be a big difference between this game and that one. So
I think that one is the one where, assuming we're not completely wrong and something crazy happens and Arizona State does win, Texas' issue of not putting the foot down on the gas pedal and getting a lead when they have the chance to get a lead will backfire, like it did in the conference championship.
Yeah, completely fair. I'm going to stop sharing. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us. Go check out our other videos for our DraftKings and everything that are coming out this week. We do have a Christmas special. There are 2 games on Christmas, 3 games on Saturday, all kinds of fun football, of course. And then you're going to get New Year's Day football. 3 games on New Year's Day for this. So we really appreciate y'all hanging out with us, and we'll see y'all next time.
Yeah, thank y'all very much.